Welcome to the deep dive. We sift through stacks of research and sources to bring you the key insights. Today, we're really getting into something fundamental, the hidden forces shaping your decisions. We all like to think we're rational. We make choices based on logic, right? But what if I told you those choices are often subtly guided by these fascinating, often unconscious mental shortcuts?
Exactly. And these shortcuts aren't just quirks. They're incredibly efficient a lot of the time.
Right.
But they can also be surprisingly powerful, sometimes helpful, sometimes, well, not so helpful.
So we're talking about cognitive biases today.
Precisely. Cognitive biases, they're basically systematic ways our thinking deviates from, let's say, pure rationality. It's where our own subjective take on reality often dictates our behavior more than the objective facts.
Mm.
And it's really important to grasp that these aren't like bugs in our brain software. Often they're adaptive mechanisms evolved for efficiency. It's that classic trade-off our brain makes, speed versus accuracy.
Okay, so our mission for this deep dive is clear then. We want to unpack what these biases really are, why our brains even have them in the first place.
Yeah.
And then maybe shine a light on some of the big ones you run into every day, look at their real-world impact.
Which can be huge.
And most importantly, give you some practical ways to maybe sharpen your thinking a bit. We're drawing on psychology, behavioral economics, even some interesting business case studies. Okay, so to really get a handle on this, maybe we should start at the beginning. Where did this idea of cognitive bias come from?
Well, the term really started gaining traction back in 1972. Amos Tversky and Daniel Kahneman did this groundbreaking work.
Kahneman, right, thinking fast and slow.
That's the one.
Huh.
Initially, they noticed this common thing they called innumeracy. People just weren't great at intuitively reasoning with large numbers or probabilities. And that observation kind of paved the way for their bigger theories about judgment and decision-making.
So how does that break down?
Well, Kahneman later popularized it with his idea of two systems of thinking. System one, he called it fast thinking. It's the automatic, effortless, intuitive stuff.
Like recognizing someone's face.
Exactly. Or knowing 2 plus 2 is 4 instantly. Or jumping when you hear a loud noise. It's like your brain's autopilot. It's always on, always running in the background. And this is where many biases tend to originate.
Okay, so that's system one. What's the other one?
That's system two, or slow thinking. This is your deliberate, effortful, conscious thought process. It's what you use for complex calculations, weighing evidence carefully, solving a tough problem.
The hard mental work.
Right. System two is generally more accurate, more rational, but it takes real mental energy. It's costly, so we don't use it unless we feel we really need to. It has to be actively engaged.
So the challenge is, system one is the default setting, right? Our brain just naturally goes for the faster, easier route.
Pretty much. And that default creates this vulnerability to making errors, especially when things get complicated or unfamiliar.
And it's not about how smart you are.
Not really, no. It's more about knowing when you need to consciously hit the brakes on that automatic system one and deliberately engage the more analytical system two. That switch, that awareness, that's the tricky part.
Okay, so why do our brains even have these shortcuts? If they can lead to errors, why are they there?
That's a great question. There are a few key reasons. First, some biases probably have roots in adaptive evolution. Think way back. Certain ways of thinking might have helped our ancestors survive.
Like what?
Well, maybe a slight tendency towards overconfidence, for instance. Projecting more confidence than perhaps was warranted might have been advantageous in conflicts or social situations back then. It produced behavior that worked, even if it wasn't perfectly rational. Then there's the simple fact of our processing limitations. Our brains are powerful, but they're not infinite computers. We operate under what's called bounded rationality.
Meaning we can't process everything.
Exactly. We can't possibly analyze every single piece of information for every decision. So heuristics, these mental shortcuts, give us quick estimates. They're usually good enough, but sometimes they lead to these systematic errors, these biases.
So evolution and just brain capacity limits. Anything else?
Oh, definitely. Biases also pop up from how we interact with the world and our own internal states. Our emotions, for example, have a huge impact.
So?
That's the affect heuristic. Basically, your gut feeling about something, whether you like it or dislike it, heavily influences your judgment about it, often without you realizing. And think about motivations. We tend to seek out and favor information that supports what we want to believe. That's called motivated reasoning.
Right, we look for proof we're right.
We do. And finally, we're intensely social creatures. We get influenced by the group. That's the bandwagon effect. We tend to favor people in our own group, in-group bias. These social factors constantly shape our thinking.
Wow. So it's this mix of ancient programming, mental limits, our feelings, our goals, and even the people around us, all constantly nudging our perception of reality.
That's a good way to put it. It's a complex interplay.
Okay, this is fascinating. Now that we kind of get the why, let's dive into some specific examples. Where do these biases actually show up?
All right, let's start with a really common one, anchoring bias. This is our tendency to grab onto the very first piece of information we get the anchor and then not adjust our thinking far enough away from it, even if that first piece was totally random.
Give me an example.
Okay, think about sales. You see, an iPhone, originally priced at $600, now discounted to $400. That initial $600 anchor makes $400 seem like a great deal, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Or salary negotiations. The first number put on the table heavily influences where the final agreement lands. And it's not just everyday stuff. There's a study, quite striking actually, with judges,
Even judges.
even experienced judges. Yeah. They were given information about a hypothetical case, including a sentencing suggestion, supposedly from a journalist, a completely irrelevant anchor number. Those who saw a high anchor number gave significantly longer sentences than those who saw a low anchor number for the exact same case details.
That's kind of scary how easily we can be influenced.
It shows how deep this runs. Okay, next up, confirmation bias. This one is huge. It's our tendency to actively look for, interpret, and remember information that confirms what we already believe. And at the same time, we ignore, downplay, or forget evidence that challenges our beliefs.
Francis Bacon had a quote about that, didn't he? Something like,
Man prefers to believe what he prefers to be true.
exactly. It captures it perfectly.
Where do we see this playing out?
Oh, everywhere. Online, think about how you search. If you type, are dogs better than cats? Into Google, you'll get results supporting dogs. Reverse it, you get results supporting cats. Search engines often try to give you what they think you want.
Right. It reinforces your existing view. Precisely.
Mhm.
And it combines with things like in-group bias to create these powerful online echo chambers where everyone agrees, beliefs get stronger, and dissenting views are shut out. We see it in political polarization, resistance to scientific findings.
And in professional settings, too.
Absolutely. Imagine a busy doctor who has a quick hunch. A patient might be exaggerating symptoms. Confirmation bias might lead them to subconsciously focus on signs that fit that hunch and miss subtle clues pointing to a serious underlying condition.
Okay, so anchoring, confirmation bias. What else is common?
Let's talk overconfidence bias. This is where our belief in our own judgments, our knowledge, our skills is reliably higher than our actual accuracy.
The better than average effect, like driving.
That's the classic example. Statistically, most people can't be better than average, but ask around, and almost everyone thinks they are. This bias shows up in a few ways. We overestimate our abilities, we think we're better compared to others than we are, and we're often way too precise in our predictions.
How does this cause problems?
Well, in finance, overconfident investors trade too much, thinking they can beat the market. Research shows the most active traders actually underperform market indexes significantly, like by 6.5% a year.
Ouch.
Yeah. And think about starting a business or even just a home renovation project. Entrepreneurs almost always underestimate the time and money needed. That's the planning fallacy, a form of overconfidence. It's a big reason why something like 90% of startups fail. Home projects go over budget all the time.
Guilty as charged on the home projects front. Okay, what about the sunk cost fallacy? I feel like I fall for this one.
We all do. This is when you keep pouring resources, time, money, effort into something that's clearly failing, just because you've already invested so much.
Like finishing a terrible movie because you paid for the ticket.
Exactly. Or sticking with a failing business project long after it's clear it won't work. Or even staying in an unhappy relationship because you put so much time and emotional energy into it. Logically, past costs are sunk. They're gone and shouldn't influence future decisions. But psychologically, it's hard to let go.
It feels like wasting what you already put in.
Precisely. And one more for now. Loss aversion. This ties into sunk costs, actually. Kahneman and Tversky found that the psychological pain of losing something is about twice as powerful as the pleasure of gaining something equivalent.
Losing hurts more than winning feels good.
Basically, yes. This makes us overly cautious sometimes. In investing, it leads people to hold on to losing stocks for too long, hoping they'll recover, avoiding the pain of realizing the loss, and sell winning stocks too early, locking in the smaller pleasure of a gain. It can also lead people to just hoard cash, missing out on potential growth because they fear any possible loss.
Okay, so we've got anchoring, confirmation bias, overconfidence, sunk costs, loss aversion, just scratching the surface, I imagine. But Powerful examples. Understanding why and how these happen leads to the big question. So what? What's the real impact here?
The impact is massive, honestly. On a personal level, these biases shape everything: your career path, who you choose as a partner, how you manage your money. We saw the financial impact of overconfidence and loss aversion already.
And professionally.
Huge implications.
Yeah.
Think about hiring. Confirmation bias might make a manager lean towards candidates who seem like them, or who agree with them, the yes people, rather than the best person for the job. Performance reviews can be skewed by anchoring, or the halo effect, where one positive trait makes you rate someone highly overall. Strategic decisions get warped.
And it's not just us regular folks, right? Even experts are prone to this.
That's the really fascinating and maybe slightly alarming part, the expert paradox. Study after study shows that highly trained professionals, doctors, lawyers, financial analysts, top executives, are absolutely affected by these biases. Expertise in a field doesn't automatically grant immunity
Why not?
because these biases are so deeply wired into our basic cognitive processes, our system one thinking. They operate below the level of conscious expertise much of the time.
So it can even shape whole organizations or industries.
Definitely. Biases can become embedded in organizational culture. Maybe excessive loss aversion makes a company too risk-averse, stifling innovation. Or status quo bias keeps them stuck in old ways. In financial markets, when lots of individuals share the same bias, like overconfidence during a boom, it can inflate speculative bubbles.
There was an interesting example in one of the sources about the resources industry, right? Mining and oil and gas.
Yes, that's a powerful case study. The source, Overcoming Biases in Strategy Formulation, pointed out that industries with certain characteristics like very slow change, huge upfront investments, and really long payback periods are particularly vulnerable.
How so?
Well, those long timelines can make executives anchor on old data or past experiences that are no longer relevant. The sheer complexity encourages reliance on simplified models or single-point forecasts. There's pressure to conform herd mentality.
Yeah.
And filtering out information that contradicts the accepted view, confirmation bias again, all this can lead to really bad strategic decisions, destroying value.
And the example was about missing China's growth.
Exactly. The flat earth paradigm in mining during the 80s, 90s, early 2000s. The industry was basically anchored to a model of low, stable demand growth based on past decades. They completely missed the scale and speed of China's industrialization and urbanization. Their entrenched mental models, riddled with biases, left them unprepared for one of the biggest commodity booms ever.
Wow. Okay, so these biases are real, they're powerful, they affect experts, they shape industries. This leads to the crucial question, can we actually do anything about them? Can we fight back?
Yes, absolutely. That's the encouraging part. While you can't just switch off System 1 or completely eliminate biases, they are fundamental, you can significantly reduce their impact. Research suggests consistent effort can lead to, say, a 30–50% improvement in decision quality.
Okay, so how do we start?
The absolute foundation is awareness and metacognition. Step 1 is just acknowledging, okay, these biases exist and I have them too. Everyone does. Metacognition is key. That's basically thinking about your own thinking, being aware of your thought processes and understanding the patterns behind them.
Just knowing is the first step. Makes sense. What techniques can we actually use?
Well, a big one, especially for important decisions, is simply slowing down. Consciously shift gears from that fast, intuitive System 1 to the more deliberate, effortful System 2. Give yourself time to think.
Don't just react on gut feeling for big stuff.
Exactly. Another crucial technique is actively seeking out diverse perspectives and feedback. Talk to people who have different backgrounds, different viewpoints, people who might disagree with you. This is one of the best defenses against confirmation bias and groupthink.
But people have to feel safe to disagree, right?
Absolutely critical. You need that internal trust within a team or relationship so people feel comfortable challenging assumptions, offering honest critiques without fear of backlash.
Okay, slow down. Get different views. What else?
You need to actively challenge your own assumptions. Don't just look for evidence that supports your idea. Deliberately hunt for evidence that could disprove it. Ask yourself, what am I missing here? Or what if I'm completely wrong about this?
Play devil's advocate with yourself.
Precisely. Or, even better, formally assign someone else that role, the devil's advocate protocol. Have someone whose job it is to poke holes in your plan, find the weaknesses. Another technique is externalizing your thought process.
What does that mean?
Get it out of your head. Write down pros and cons. Talk through your reasoning out loud with someone. Use a checklist for complex decisions. This moves your thinking from that fast, internal, potentially biased space into something more concrete and analyzable.
I like that. Makes it tangible.
It really does. And then there's a fantastic technique called pre-mortem analysis.
Pre-mortem, like before it dies.
Kind of. Before you launch a big project or make a major decision, you imagine it's, say, a year in the future, and it has failed spectacularly. Then you and your team write down all the reasons why it failed.
Oh, interesting. So you anticipate the problem.
Exactly. It forces you to uncover risks and potential pitfalls that your natural optimism bias or planning fallacy might have otherwise hidden. Research shows this can boost decision quality by as much as 30%.
That's powerful. Any other key strategies?
A few more worth mentioning. Practicing intellectual humility is vital. That means being genuinely open to the possibility that you're wrong, that your knowledge is incomplete. Leaders especially need this to counter epistemic arrogance, that dangerous belief that you know everything.
Stay curious, stay humble?
Yes.
Yeah.
And in organizations, it's important to create protected space for strategy. Get people away from the daily grind, put diverse teams together, and give them dedicated time to really challenge assumptions and the status quo. This helps break down those entrenched mental models we talked about.
Like the mining example.
Right. And finally, consider polarity management. Sometimes it's not about choosing option A or option B, but finding ways to manage the tension between two valid poles over time, like centralization and decentralization. Aiming for balance, not a single right answer.
Wow, okay. That's a really practical toolkit. Slow down, get diverse views, challenge assumptions, externalize, do a pre-mortem, stay humble, protect strategy time. Lots to work with.
It is, and none of it is magic. It all takes practice.
So wrapping this up, we've journeyed from the very origins of cognitive biases with Kahneman and Tversky through understanding why our brains take these shortcuts,
Both evolutionary reasons and processing limits.
to spotting specific biases like anchoring, confirmation bias, overconfidence, and seeing their very real impact on everything from our personal finances to major industry screw-ups.
And crucially, we've seen that while they're a fundamental part of how we think, those efficient, but sometimes flawed System 1 shortcuts, we're not helpless.
Right. The goal isn't impossible perfection, not becoming perfectly rational robots.
Definitely not. It's about significantly improving the quality of our decisions, especially the important ones, by becoming more aware and using these debiasing techniques.
And it's an ongoing process, isn't it? The sources mentioned it takes time, maybe a few weeks to start recognizing biases, longer to really make improvements habitual.
Exactly. 2 to 3 weeks for basic recognition, maybe 6 to 8 weeks of consistent practice to see meaningful shifts in decision-making quality. It's about ongoing learning, continuous refinement, not a one-off fix.
Cultivating that persistent curiosity and intellectual humility you mentioned.
That's the core of it. By
Mhm.
getting better at understanding and managing our own biases, we not only make better choices for ourselves, but we can also contribute to, more constructive conversations, better problem solving together, and maybe being a little less susceptible to misinformation as a society.
A worthy goal. Okay, so as we finish this deep dive, here's a final thought for you to take away and maybe chew on this week. The quest is not for an infallible mind, but for a mind more aware of its inherent tendencies and better equipped to navigate them wisely. So think about it. What single bias will you try to notice in yourself this week? And what's one small step you could take to challenge it?